Welcome to Untold Lores. Part 3 of 4. I did not run. I want you to understand that. Not because I was brave. I was not brave at all. My whole body was shaking so hard my teeth were pressing together. But because I understood in that moment, with a clarity that came from somewhere below rational thought, that running inside a building while that thing was outside was not running away from it. It was running toward a room with no exit while it decided when to enter. So I stood at the window, and it looked at me. Its eye sockets were empty in the way that a hole in a wall is empty. Not vacant but hollow, as if there was depth behind the blackness, as if you could push your hand into that darkness and find it going somewhere. The whites of eyes imply a limit. These had none. I watched it for 30 seconds. It did not move. Then my phone lit up on the table behind me and I flinched, turned, and when I turned back the courtyard was empty. I checked every window. I checked the door 3 times. I did not sleep. In the morning I made myself do 3 things. The first was to call Peter and ask him to come early. He did not answer. I left a message. The second was to go back through every piece of research I had, looking for one thing I had overlooked. The family history before the lighthouse, before 1891, before Carreg Dub. I had been so focused on the island that I had treated it as a beginning. The third floor inscriptions had told me differently. It followed us here, the 1977 keeper had written, which meant there was a before. I found it in a genealogical record Nuala had included almost as a footnote. A marriage record from County Mayo 1888, listing the groom as Amos Malone, occupation fisherman of Achill Island. One note appended to the record by a subsequent archivist, same family as the Malone drowning incident of 1886. Clue Bay, 4 men lost at sea during a night crossing, all Malone by blood. Body of the eldest, Pedraig Malone, never recovered. I stared at that for a long time. Then I pulled up every drowning record I could access for the Malone name across the Irish western seaboard going back to the 1840s. There were 17 entries. The pattern was not subtle once I could see it. Once per generation approximately, a Malone man drowned. Not in accidents, the records were specific. Each case noted as unusual. Each case noting that the man had gone to the water voluntarily, or had been found at the water's edge, or had last been seen walking toward the shore at night. Each case noting the same weather condition at time of disappearance. Flat calm, no wind. And then the third thing I had told myself to do, I went back into the tower. I needed to see the 3rd floor again in daylight, with my own eyes and not a camera screen. I needed to stand in the same space that shape had occupied and prove to myself it was a storage unit or a trick of shadow, and that I was still the kind of person who could prove things. The first 2 floors were unchanged. I climbed slowly, camera off this time. I needed my hands free and I did not want to see the 3rd floor through a screen. I came around the final curve of the spiral stair. I stepped onto the landing, and I understood immediately what was different. The shape was not in the corner. The shape was gone as I had told myself it would be. But the wall beneath where it had stood was wet. Not damp. Wet, soaking, as if something waterlogged had pressed against it for hours. The stone was dark with moisture that was not seawater and was not rain because the porthole on that landing had been sealed shut since at least 1978. And it smelled. It smelled of brine, and beneath the brine something organic, something the sea returns after it has had something for a long time. I stepped closer to look at the wet stone. My boot touched something on the floor. I looked down. In the standing water that had pooled at the base of the wall, in the inch of dark liquid that had gathered there overnight, there were footprints. Not human footprints. Long, narrow, the toes extending to points, leading from the wall to the staircase, going down, not up. Whatever had been standing here had not come from above. It had come from outside, from the courtyard up the stairs. And then when I had looked away from the window, it had come inside. It had been on this landing, 3 floors above me, while I stood at the cottage window looking at an empty courtyard. And now the prints on the floor led down the staircase, down toward where I was standing, down toward the cottage where I had left all my equipment and my only means of communication. I stood absolutely still. From below me, from the base of the tower, from the ground floor corridor, came the breathing. The lights on my generator died, and in the sudden total darkness of the spiral staircase, with wet footprints leading down between my feet and the only exit, something below me slowly, deliberately exhaled. That's it for part 3. Follow Untold Lores for part 4. Like and subscribe for daily stories.